Welcome, everyone. We are so thrilled you are here with us today. We are recording this webinar so that others that are not here with us can join this later. We are so lucky to be joined by one of your own, Tina Folston Hayes. And Tina, Alachua and the Cook Center for Human Connection, as you know, we came together to bring these mental health series to your families. Why is it so important for these families to be on? And we're just so thankful that they took time out of their schedules to be with us. Kind of share with us why you brought these series to Alachua and also what you do at Alachua, just so everyone can get to know you a little bit.
So my name is Tina Folston Hayes. I am the new Parent Academy Specialist with the Alachua County Public Schools, Educational and Equity Department. And so we found it valuable for the Cook Center to come on and provide our parents and students with some valuable information when it comes to mental health. And so we appreciate you guys doing these series for us and providing these resources. So thank you again for joining us tonight.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, we are just so glad to have all of our Alachua family members on here with us. And tonight we're going to be discussing de-escalating cycles of conflict and how we can do that with our children. Tonight, we do have an opportunity for you to anonymously interact with us. So if you want to pull out your cell phone, you can go ahead and scan this QR code, and this will actually allow you to be able to join us this evening and participate. So really excited about that. It doesn't look like this QR code is going for some reason. So let me try it the other way and make sure that we are all good to go there. If not, we'll remedy that really quick. Usually you can also go to www.menti.com and you can go ahead and enter in the code, which is 4618732. And so let me see how that's working. And once you're in, you can click that little thumbs up. So it looks like we already have one person in with us this evening, and thank you so much. So either scan that QR code or go to www.menti.com and enter the code 4618732. That'll allow you to take polls, quizzes, share different advice to the fellow parents that are on. So let's give it a minute or two while everyone joins, while everyone gets their Menti set up. We have some more folks who are just signing in, and right now you can scan this QR code to join the community this evening and be able to share your thoughts, take polls and quizzes with us as we work through de-escalating cycles of conflict and how to do that with your children. Looks like we've got 2 people in, and we would love for a few more to join us, so feel free to do that as well. We have one person that said amazing. So we've got 3 in. Excellent. So we'll just let some people trickle in, and I'll go ahead and introduce the Cook Center. The Cook Center for Human Connection, we are all about helping schools help parents help their children. And so that is really our goal at the Cook Center for Human Connection. And tonight we will be discussing de-escalating cycles of conflict with our students. My name is Grace Brown, and I'm an impact manager here at the Cook Center for Human Connection. And my teammate, Jennifer and Dora, my teammates are actually also doing this session in Spanish as we speak. So if you're on with us, you're on the English version. We all at the Cook Center for Human Connection have a big background in education. Most of us were teachers at one time, And, we have all been in those situations with our families and our classrooms where we are caught in cycles of conflict with students, our own children, our families. And maybe we had expectations that weren't met, which caused frustration, and frustration, brought up different emotion for folks, sometimes even maybe anger. And so that's kind of what we're going to do tonight. We're going to be chatting a little bit about that. So without further ado, let's get started on tonight's mental health discussion, de-escalating cycles of conflict with our children. The cycle of conflict is this universal topic. And so often we are all just doing our best. We're doing the best we can. But even with the very best of intentions, we can end up clashing with those that are closest to us, maybe a sibling, a parent, a child, somebody in your class. And that can cause these repetitive cycles of conflict. And so as we go through life, each experience we go through adds another piece to the puzzle that forms who we are. And as we experience trauma, unpleasant circumstances, great circumstances, we collect parts. And these parts make up who we are, how we react, our emotions, how we respond to conflict, and those types of things. So that is that. So let's dive in. I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Are you new to parentguidance.org? Are you new to our series? Is this your first time on Menti? Let us know. Or maybe you have attended before. And if that's the case, welcome back. We are so thrilled you are with us. Looks like we've got some new folks on with us this evening. So thank you so much for sharing with us. I'm also curious, what are the ages of your children? Maybe you have elementary age children in your home. Maybe you have high school age children in your home. Maybe you have older kiddos in your home. Who are the kids in your life that maybe are part of Alachua schools? Looks like we've got a nice mix here. We've got families with older children, elementary school children, middle school children, and high school students. And so just wanted to thank everyone for submitting that as well. So slamming doors, shouting, ignoring. Does this sound familiar to you at all? Children have over 4,200 arguments with their parent by the age of 18. Why? Why do we get caught in cycles of conflict with those we love most? Today, we are going to learn some of the whys behind what we do and how we reset. We are going to learn all about the cycle of conflict and how to de-escalate a situation by breaking it down. And we have our protector parts, exile parts. We're going to learn about what those are, how they help us in this process. And we'll also learn how to speak for our emotions and not from our emotions. We will take a closer look at our students' emotions, our kiddos' emotions, and really learn the importance of being aware of emotions. And I'd like to start us out by introducing you to a colleague of mine, Jenna Ramirsma. Jenna Ramirsma is a member of our parentguidance.org faculty, and she is the founder of Move Toward by Jenna. Jenna is a teacher at the International Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals. She actually holds a master's degree from Harvard and a second master's from Richmond Graduate University. She's a licensed counselor and therapist, and also a #1 best-selling author. And, Jenna has helped to put together tonight's curriculum for us. So our bodies and minds are like a puzzle, and we are all kind of made up of these different parts, like that image we saw just a moment ago. And Jenna's going to talk just a little bit more about that. Tina, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can hear the video.
Internal Family Systems, or IFS for short, is a model of understanding human behavior that was developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz about 40 years ago. And it simply suggests then rather than us being one large monolithic creature, we're all as human beings comprised of a core self, who you and I authentically are, and many different parts. And it's actually the activity of our parts that gets in the way of our access to ourself. that causes all of our struggling in life. The IFS model teaches us that rather than being one large monolithic entity, we are all comprised of a core self and many different parts. And our core self is really a deeply loving, grounded, connected, calm, courageous part of us. In fact, it's who you truly are and who I truly am. This incredible core is at the center of every human being. Incidentally, this is our authentic connection to the divine. But we don't all walk around feeling loving and compassionate and connected and curious and courageous most of the time. The reason why is because our parts get activated and obscure our access to our core self. Now, we're created with this basic self and many different parts, and those unburdened parts just make up our unique personalities. We all have parts of us that are unique to who we are. But when difficult things happen in life, which often happens to many of us at a pretty young age, our parts become burdened or covered over with the impact of that, what we would call in the clinical world, trauma. And they lose access to their innately positive qualities. So we develop parts of us that feel sad or depressed, parts that feel ashamed. If you really knew who I was, you wouldn't love me. Parts that feel ugly, or parts that feel like a lone wolf. I'm all alone and nobody's really here for me. Or parts that feel slow and stupid. These are the burdens that our exiled parts carry. And they're called exiles because all the rest of our parts want to try to exile them because we don't like the way those feelings feel. When our exiles are triggered, we lose access to our core self qualities and we get flooded by the emotions that they carry.
Have you ever been in that situation, flooded by the emotions? You know, depending on your life circumstance and your experience, your mind reacts differently to cycles of conflict. And so we're going to actually look at the cycle of conflict for a minute from a really broad overview. Today, we're going to learn more about each of these phases, but I want to kind of paint this big picture for you before we dive in a little deeper. When you encounter a stressful incident, it activates a protector part, and that happens inside of you. And this is your body's way of naturally protecting you from what is perceived to be something that's harmful or dangerous to you. And based on the incident, our body generates feelings or reactions, which are also known as exiles, based on past trauma. And our body tries to exile or get rid of those feelings, which is and can trigger observable behavior. And this behavior may result in us speaking from our parts or our feelings instead of speaking for them. Have you ever been in a situation where, you spoke from your parts instead of for them? If this doesn't make sense right now, don't worry. I will explain it a little bit more deeper. At this time, we can choose to de-escalate a situation by being more aware of what's going on, more aware of our feelings, how we feel, and change the way we react to the situation by expressing our feelings instead of letting our feelings be that reaction. And so I'm curious, I want to hear from you. Let's start with a conflict cycle. What is a conflict cycle that's maybe going on in your home? Something that's coming up over and over again. I'd like to get an idea of what are some concerns you have going on in your everyday life so I can really, make this part, helpful for your own needs and your own family. So somebody said homework. And I'd love to hear what others have to say. Making fun. Okay, yeah. So homework can definitely be a cycle of conflict, making fun. Are you sensing defiant from your students or defiance? Do you tend to agree to something you don't want to just to keep the peace? What might that be? Do you have a student that's easily offended and seems to always be looking for a fight? Are you seeing outbursts or anger or frustration? When does that happen? Is it every day at the same time? Is there a cycle you cannot seem to break? Screen time, that's another good one that we hear often. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing all of these. I want to take a minute and I want to think about I want you to think about one specific conflict going on. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can type it in your phone. You can just think about it. This could be with a student. This could be with a colleague in your life. This could be with a partner, a spouse. Pick a conflict that seems to be happening in your life right now. And keep coming back to that relationship with this one person throughout our time together. Jenna is going to help us think through a cycle of conflict you've been dealing with in your own world. But first, let's talk more about our protector parts and how those affect within us.
Now, we also develop protective parts that try to protect us from the pain of the exiles. They also become burdened in response to the burdened pain of our exiled parts. And they take on strategies to try to help either prevent that pain or put it out. The ones that prevent the pain, or attempt to, are called our managers. And they get stuck in roles that you may be familiar with. Maybe an internal critic that yells at us to try to get it to do it right so that we don't have to face the feelings of rejection or failure. Maybe it's control, where we get up in other people's business and look at what they're doing and say things like, you should. Because if we can control our circumstances, then unforeseen things can't jump up and harm us. Or maybe it's the denial manager. Everything. Now, and she's raging. We're all fine. It's good. How are you? Our denial parts are pretty strong. They prevent us from seeing what's really there because it's too painful to actually acknowledge. Then there's our people-pleasing parts. We say yes when we mean no, and we go to pizza when we really want Chinese food because that's what our friend wants. They're trying to help us gain approval and attachment, but they wind up disowning who we really are. Sometimes we have perfectionist parts that look perfect, do it perfectly, jump high, and try to never ever make a mistake. These perfectionist parts are really trying to help us, but they wind up hurting us, just like all of our well-intentioned parts. Or maybe you have an intellectualizer part, or someone who does. We just think if we could know all the answers or stay in our heads, then we won't have to feel those painful, icky feelings. Notice that all of our managers and all of our firefighters are good parts. They're just stuck in bad roles because they're trying to help us put out the pain of our exiles.
Stuck in bad roles, helping us put out the pain of our exiles. Do you have any of these protector parts? We all have protectors within us. It's what keeps us feeling safe. Sometimes knowing we have protector parts will help us better understand how we get into a situation or why we are feeling a certain way. Being aware of our protector parts can really give us a powerful way to step into healing and change our most basic feelings, our most basic thoughts and behaviors that may be getting caught up in this cycle of conflict. I want you to think about this. Do any of these protector parts sound like they might describe you? Which of these show up to protect you most often? Using Menti, place a dot on your strongest protector part. If you're using notes tonight, write down one of these that you identify most with. Do you feel like maybe you're the inner critic yelling at maybe you feel an inner critic yelling at you to do right and not face the feelings of rejection. Maybe you feel like your protector part is to control others and get up into people's business, and maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe your protector part is denial, and maybe that prevents us from seeing what's really there because it's too painful to actually acknowledge. Abusive behaviors maybe are out there that you don't want to face. Maybe you're dealing with people pleasing. Try to help us gain approval, and trying to help other people gain approval, trying to help you not feel disowned. Maybe people pleasing. What is it for you? Go ahead and it looks like some folks have already done this, but go ahead and share with us where you're at. Where you're at. Who are you? We have some folks that maybe are relating to denial, perfectionist, people pleaser. Absolutely. We have two types of protector parts. We have managers, and they take care of our daily needs like food, intake, sleep patterns, carrying on duties such as chores, studying, deadlines. And then we have firefighters, and they are our fiery managers that kick in where and when we perceive danger. They are reactive. They offer a quick fix to a problem. And the strongest firefighters are those that activate and protect parts of us that have been traumatized. And when we get triggered by events, those firefighters really kick into gear. So I want to just talk a little bit about exiles. Exiles represent a psychological trauma. This often, for a lot of us, might come from childhood. And it's something that we carry the pain of and fear of. Exiles may become isolated from other parts and polarize the system kind of within us. Managers and firefighters try to protect a person's consciousness by really preventing the exile's pain from coming to awareness. And Jenna is really going to explain more about exiles.
So, what I'd like to invite you to do is take that scenario or any scenario where you're finding yourself in a cycle of conflict and identify, write down the parts of you that you suspect get activated in that cycle. What exiled parts of you are present? Do you have parts that feel afraid, anxious, alone, broken, unimportant, not good enough, powerless? Those would be your exile parts. Write down as many as tend to show up for you in that cycle.
What came to mind for you? When trauma is experienced, exiles develop in an effort to protect from feelings of pain, terror, fear, and so on. When you find yourself in a cycle of conflict, our exile parts show up. And I'm curious, what shows up for you? Think about a tense situation or a heated argument. Maybe it's a particular cycle of conflict you are thinking about today. If you feel comfortable, please share in Menti what exiles or feelings get activated for you when there's conflict. Do you become afraid, broken, jealous? Maybe you become resentful, powerless, lonely, anxious, attacked, ashamed. What happens for you? What comes up for you? So it looks like we have some people that deal with anxiousness, loneliness, anger. Yeah, this is something we can all relate to. Being aware of our feelings during a cycle of conflict can really help us to separate the feelings that are kind of being stirred up in us from the actual situation. And knowing, what is often activated in us, what firefighters, if you will, kind of come on the scene, that may be the very thing that helps us to remain more calm and in control of our emotions. Our emotions are part of us. And Jenna is going to give us a simple tool that will help us to de-escalate cycles of conflict. And it's a technique where we speak for our emotions. And you are going to give your emotions a voice. You're going to give that anger a voice, that anxiety a voice, that loneliness a voice. You are going to be speaking from your emotions, and she's going to explain more. Feel free to grab a pen and paper and jot this down if it would be helpful for you.
Hi, everybody. I want to teach you a simple tool that will help to de-escalate conflict in your life and mine using the IFS model. It's a simple technique called speaking for, not from. I know that doesn't make any sense right now. So let me add something to that. We want to be speaking for our parts from our core self, not from our parts. And I'm going to give you an illustration of why and how this is such a powerful technique. Well, you may be aware that cycles of conflict can happen with anyone, particularly people with whom we are in close relationship. A child, a spouse, our mother-in-law, the neighbor, our boss, a coworker, whoever it might be. When we have a repetitive cycle of conflict, what happens is, in all likelihood, that person has a burdened part that gets activated, which activates one of our burdened parts. And our burdened part and their burdened part go round and round and round. Sometimes we don't even have to say anything for that cycle to kick off. That person might walk in the room and our burdened part goes, hello, I know exactly what part of you is up. You know what I'm talking about?
Can you relate to that? Do you know what she's talking about? Have you been in that scenario? This may be a bit confusing at first. And if you're not sure what cycle of conflict may be in your life, maybe this next example will help clarify.
So to do that, I'm going to have to tell you a little bit about how my parts developed and how my dear husband's parts developed. So when I was a little girl, I am an only child. There were no other kids in my immediate family or even my extended family on either side for like a million years. And my dad was in the military, so we moved all the time. Now, because that meant that I, as a kid, was alone all the time or with a bunch of adults who weren't a whole lot of fun to play with because they weren't kids. I developed a young part who dearly, dearly wanted a dog, like for all the world. And my parents were not really having it because moving all the time, it's super hard to have a dog. And my mom is a really tidy individual who likes to have a nice, well-run, organized, clean house. And a big, hairy, smelly, slobbery, sheddy dog really didn't kind of fit with that whole mojo. So as a result, I have a burdened exile part that's pretty young, who really, 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 for all the world, wants a big, hairy, slobbery, shedding, big dog, and never had it. Now, this part also has had encounters with people who have strong personalities, and I have developed a protective part that comes in and causes me to disappear. This is my little shadow from How to Train Your Dragon. Just runs in and tries to help me disappear and not be present so that people who are big won't hurt me. Make sense? Okay. Now, my husband, on the other hand, of course, at his core has this wonderful, calm, curious, compassionate self, just like I do. And in his early life, he had some experiences where he felt devalued or unimportant. So he developed a burden exile that carries a burden of feeling unimportant or devalued. And he also developed a burdened firefighter that comes in and gets short with or kind of snaps at whatever the situation or person is that's making that part feel devalued so that that will back up or back away. And you can see where this is going, can't you?
So let's pause here. Let's review those moving parts in Jenna's, really very real example. Every one of us has a core and a connected, creative, calm, curious, compassionate, confident, and clear-minded self. And Jenna represents that with her glass jar. With all 8 of these words, as we encounter conflicts in our lives, we develop exiles whose parts of us might feel terror, shame, fear, pain, and they jump in and they take over and we feel it. And we also develop a protector part. And we're going to introduce that to you later. But by listening to Jenna's example, does this help you to connect this in your own life? Let's finish by listening to the resolution of this cycle of conflict.
Our son is home from college for the holidays, and that is the best thing ever. But not only is he home, but his slobbery, furry, hairy, shedding, wiggly 90 pounds of Labrador puppy is also home with him. And you can imagine how delighted my little girl part is. The dog she never had is here. So she is all about it. She wants to take Thor for a walk. She wants to throw the ball with Thor. She wants to do all the things with Thor. And what's really kind of funny is I can't throw balls to save my life. It's become a family joke. I try to throw the ball for Thor and it either goes straight up in the air or straight down onto the ground or over in the flowers or up in the umbrella. It's hopeless. It's not my skill set. So anyway, my little girl, she is so happy. Now, last Saturday, my husband and I took Thor to the dog park. And not just any dog park. This was a wonderful dog park filled with other smelly, furry, slobbery dogs and mud. Oh my gosh, best thing ever. So at the end of the dog park morning, we had a smelly, hairy, slobbery, muddy, stinky Thor in the back of my car, and it will never come out. The smell will always be there. My little girl is so happy. But she, like many little girls, when she gets to do something that she likes, says, again, do it again, because that's what little kids do when they're doing something they like. So, on our way home from the dog park, I saw another field that would be perfect for throwing the ball with Thor. And so I said to my dear long-suffering husband, honey, can we pull over and go to that park and throw the ball with Thor? Now, as you might imagine, my very patient and long-suffering husband at this point is feeling unimportant and undervalued. And so his protector part came up and got a little bit snippy with me and said, no, I don't want to do that. We've already spent the whole morning at the dog park. Thor just feels like he's more important than everybody in our family.
On Menti, which of these protective parts resonates with you more often? Becoming aware of our protective parts is an important part of the process. It looks like a lot of us on tonight might relate to that snippy part. Now, we've identified the parts. Let's see what Jenna's analysis is of what's happening between Jenna and her husband.
This is an example of speaking from our parts. Okay? My little girl was completely blended with me. I had been taken over by my little girl, and it was she who was asking to go to the park, right? And when I stopped talking and got small, that was actually this part speaking, or more to the point, not speaking. When my husband felt unimportant and had the snippiness come out, that was actually his snippy part, his move against part that was speaking. He was speaking from that part. Notice it wasn't going so well. We both felt hurt. We both felt unappreciated and unsafe. It brought conflict into the relationship. This is a conflict that unfortunately is circular. It tends to happen every time Thor and my son come home from college to visit. But on this occasion, we both took a time out. I noticed the parts that were coming up in me, and I came back to my husband unblended. When we are unblended from our parts, our self can speak on their behalf. It can speak for them. That is a completely different experience than speaking from them. And when I did that, I was able to come back and say, honey, I am really sorry that you felt devalued. That makes a lot of sense to me, because I asked and then asked again to keep doing things with Thor when we had other priorities that you wanted to get done that day. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Would it be okay if I let you know what parts of me were activated in that conversation? I have this little girl part who's always wanted a dog, particularly a big, hairy, slobbery, wiggly, big old lovey dog. And that part is ecstatic when Thor is home and just can't get enough and wants to do all the things with Thor. And then when that part of me experiences the snippy part of you, I get a shutdown part that takes me over to try to get me out of conflict. That's what happened for me in our last situation. My husband immediately recognized what had happened. He was now unblended from his parts. He owned the parts that had become activated for him and apologized. Because let's be honest, this part can create a little bit of hurt.
So let's go ahead and look at our cycle of conflict again. And I hope you're feeling like you are understanding your parts a little bit better. I also am looking forward to you to learn how to speak from your parts.
So now, what I want to invite you to do is think about the relationship in which you are most engaged in cycles of conflict. Is it with your child? Is it with your spouse? Is it with your parent? Is it with your boss? Whoever it's with, I want to invite you to take just a moment and think through how that cycle of conflict predictably plays itself out. What typically starts it? What parts of you get activated and take you over in that cycle of conflict? What parts of the other person typically get activated and take them over in that cycle of conflict? Now, in that cycle of conflict, when those parts have taken you both over, you're speaking from your parts, meaning the parts are speaking through your mouth. You're speaking as if you are that part of you. So, what does that part of you say? What does that part of you do? How does the other person's part respond? What do they say? What do they do? How does that work out? Does the conflict get better? Does it get worse? How do you each feel leaving the conversation when you've both been speaking from your parts? I'm going to go out on a limb, because this is the way parts work, and guess that in your repetitive cycle of conflict, just like mine, when your protector parts are in charge and you're speaking from them, it is actually compounding the pain and the burden of the exiled part in the other person. And their burden protector is compounding the pain of your exiled parts.
You know, at the end of the day, it's really as easy as saying, this is what I'm feeling, and because I'm feeling this way, this is how I acted, or this is what I did. How are you feeling? And did you have any reaction because of the way you were feeling? What can we do to help each other feel better in these situations? Let's explore some common emotions together. There are no correct answers, but I'd like you to select the emotion that you may experience when you are disappointed. How does disappointment come across for you? Is it angry, frustrated, sad? How does it come across for you? Angry, frustrated, sad? Everyone's different. We express our emotions in a different way, and that's normal. I'm also curious as far as when you are scared, what emotions do you experience? Are you angry, worried, emotional? Yeah, maybe some of us get worried, angry, emotional. I'd like us to take a minute, and since we are talking about emotions, let me share with you a helpful technique that can help diffuse feelings within yourself. Recognizing or noticing your emotions is really the first step, and you can take this when you're trying to de-escalate a cycle of conflict. So let's take a minute and let's smile. Think of something that makes you happy, something that makes you smile, maybe even something that makes you laugh. And then let's breathe. Smile. We are going to take 3 deep breaths. Watch my screen. Sit comfortably. We're going to breathe deeply in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. And again, breathe deeply in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. Last one, breathe deeply in through your nose and take a moment and breathe out. And then take a moment to slowly refocus. Did breathing deeply help you relax a bit more? How did you feel? Okay, now I want you to furrow your brow. Do not smile, but breathe in and breathe out 3 times. Do you feel different? Was there a difference between the 2 breathing exercises? Smiling and breathing deeply stirs up a different and a positive energy flow than when we have a furrowed brow. And when you're in a cycle of conflict, it is a good idea to gather yourself, smile, take a few deep breaths. Give yourself a few minutes to reflect. You don't have to respond right away. Be aware of your inner childhood feelings like Jenna has. Be aware of maybe what's getting activated and why. Try to separate these parts. Think about how you can speak for your parts instead of from them. And how you can do that in a conflict. Try to smile, breathe deeply, allow your mind and your body to exhale. Throw away some of those negative emotions. Smiling actually helps us to generate a positive energy flow. Did you know that? For parents, understanding our child's emotions is so important. And Jenna's going to ask us a few more questions for us to really learn about the other person's parts.
Now, what I'd like you to do is hypothetically figure out which parts of the other person in this cycle are getting activated and why. See if you can identify what their exiled parts might be. Now, see if you can identify, this is probably easier, what their protector parts might be. Now, for both of you, think through where these parts first originated in your lives. How did they learn how to try to help you in this way? Where did they figure out how to do what they're doing? For our protectors, or for our exiles, where did they first feel these yucky, scary feelings?
Let me go ahead and put the protector parts and exile parts back up for you. And so you can think through this. You can reflect on this with your own kiddos, your own family. What type of protectors describe your kids best, or your spouse best, or whoever that person is that you're thinking about that cycle of conflict with? When you are in conflict with this person, what protector parts do you think are being activated for them? What emotions are activating these protector parts? Does your student feel unimportant or anxious? What is causing them to feel anxious? Is it because they are a perfectionist? Is it because they want everything to be perfect or appear to be? Are they controlling because they are afraid to be alone or let down? I'll give you a minute to think about this and write down some of these ideas. I want you to think about what emotions speak up for your person in mind. Using Menti, put a dot on an image that best represents the emotions that commonly come up for the person you're dealing with. Is it rage, shame, people pleaser, bored, guarded, aggressive, annoyed, excited, tired? For me, my mom always told me that when I got stressed, I would get really tired. Some people get really sick when they're stressed. When we learn to speak for our parts, we are verbally recognizing the protective pieces within us. Now we are going to get more, we've become really quite acquainted with our protector parts and our exile parts within ourselves and the other people in our lives. And now Jenna is going to talk about being more aware. How do you be more aware?
So now the magic. When we have this awareness of our parts and the compassionate awareness of the parts of the other person that are getting activated, we can come back to them in our core self energy. We can speak for our parts rather than from them. From our self energy, we can speak on behalf of the parts of us that have gotten activated. So let's say I'm a parent and I'm caught in a cycle of conflict with a child who is avoidant. Let's say I have a child who's anxious about school and avoiding their homework. And I have parts that are getting angry and frustrated and controlling, let's just say, because that's kind of a common scenario right now with, at the time of this filming, COVID and lots of homeschooling. All right, So I might come back to my child and say, sweetheart, I need to apologize to you. I'm realizing that I have a part that feels, I'm going to make something up, powerless and worried when I observe you not getting your homework done. I have another part of me that jumps up and takes me over and tries to control your behavior to make you do it, so my anxiety will go down. That probably doesn't feel very good to you, and I'm so sorry. That's what's going on for me. Would you like to tell me what parts of you come up? Now, a child may not be able to do that, but sometimes they can. You'd be amazed. And what a powerful thing that is to realize that part of your child or your spouse or your neighbor or your boss is not all of who they are, and your part is not all of who you are. And how powerful it is to speak for our parts on their behalf and how they're trying to help us, but how they inadvertently hurt the other person. Speaking for, not from, is one easy and powerful takeaway from IFS for de-escalating cycles of conflict. Go out and try it. I hope you enjoy.
So, we have now gone through a complete cycle of conflict, which starts with a stressful incident that activates a part within us. And today we learn the importance of being aware of our parts within us. Jenna shared the example of her little girl part within her and how it really shows up in her adult life at times. Everyone has protective parts. And when we encounter a stressful situation, these parts get activated, which causes us to really have feelings or reactions, which are also known as exiles, where we may feel ashamed or unimportant. Our behavior is based on how we react. It's based on how we respond. And like in Jenna's example with her husband, her husband got snippy. And, that caused her to go quiet, and she wasn't productive. And, once she realized that this is what was happening, she was able to speak up for the emotions. She was able to say, hey, honey, this is what I'm feeling, and this is the reaction I'm having because of those feelings. And we can teach this to our kiddos too. De-escalating a conflict by speaking for our parts instead of from them, by acting, not reacting, acting, not reacting. That's super important. Our kiddos need to recognize when they are feeling angry. It may be because they are truly scared and they don't know how to verbalize it. And something within them is being activated. When we give a voice to our emotions, it really creates a sense of strength within us, and it can change the way we react to conflict. And so it's important that we teach our students this process. We teach our kiddos this process. We teach our family members this process. We model this process by doing it ourselves. And if we do not recognize and speak for our emotions, the cycle of conflict just kind of continues round and round. So let's again take a moment and reflect on what we learned today. Taking what you learned, which area or areas are you most likely to practice? Will you notice your protector parts within you and what causes them to react? Will you focus more on your true emotions behind the reactions? Maybe you'll be focused on de-escalating cycles of conflict by speaking for your emotions, not from them. Will you try to just smile and breathe and take a deep breath before responding to generate some positive energy flow within yourself? Cycles of conflict will always be present, and the most powerful way to de-escalate a situation is to separate our emotions that are being activated, speak for our activated parts instead of from them, and take a minute to breathe, take a minute to smile, which creates a positive energy flow. When we had that furrowed brow, our energy flow was really different. And, this isn't all. We have some other resources I'm going to share with you in just a minute. We have resources at parentguidance.org. But before I dive into those other resources and kind of some follow-up from today, we have another session coming up, another family mental health night in January. It's on the 26th. And, Tina and I would love to see you all out there for that January 26th, 2023 in the new year, 6 to 7 p.m. You can go ahead and scan that QR code to sign up, or you can click register now. Tina, before I dive into our parentguidance.org resources, is there anything you'd like to say about cycles of conflict or grief, the healing process after loss? That's our next session coming up.
You know what? You guys are amazing just to bring these resources to our parents and students. You have covered so much in this hour that is so useful. And so I don't have anything to add. You guys have really, really brought this to light and showing us ways, that we probably never even tapped into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I do these all the time, Tina. I know you work in this mental health space as well. But when I retake these courses, when I think about it, even since the last time I did this course, which maybe was a month ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a conflict that I'm thinking of that I could, I'm going to address that differently as we go into the holidays, y'all. There's conflicts that come up in our families. And so think of some of these simple things, breathing, those kinds of things. Okay. The other thing I want to make sure that you guys are aware of is parentguidance.org. So this is the parentguidance.org website. Of course, I have 100 tabs open, so just ignore that. But this is our parentguidance.org website. It is free for anyone, anywhere, and it is something that you all can get access to. You just go to parentguidance.org. You simply click get started for free. You create a free account. I'm already logged in, so I'm just going to go ahead and click over to courses. And, there might be a time over the holidays with your child or with a spouse that you feel like you might need, you wish you had one of these to go to and think about. These are on-demand courses that you can take at your own pace on your own time with our clinicians like Jenna Ramirsma, like Dr. Kevin Skinner and Dr. Lopez Larson, who's a Harvard-trained psychologist, Dr. Greg Hudnall, Dr. Maza, who is the leading suicidologist in the country. Here are some of our topics. Parenting, connecting with your child, parenting with a purpose. That would be a great follow-up from today. Bullying, suicide prevention, social media, how social media is affecting our kiddos. We had somebody mention anxiety. We have a whole session, a whole class here you can take on your own on anxiety with Jenna, who we just were with, and she's hosting that. These are on demand. Again, share these with anyone, anywhere. So if you have a sister-in-law in Nebraska that you feel like would benefit from this, share this. The other thing is we have Ask a Therapist, and this is where anyone can pose a question to our clinical team. Here are some of the questions that parents have posed to our team. How much does a parent's anxiousness and depression affect a child? That's a question that came into us. And here is our clinical director, Dr. Kevin Skinner. And if you click on View Answer, you'll be able to see a video that he recorded of himself responding to that, so it can benefit all of us. So that is Ask a Therapist. The other thing that is special for our Alachua families is parent coaching. Over the holidays, anytime, if you feel like you're in a little bit of a crisis, maybe you're going through a separation, maybe you've lost a loved one and this is your first holiday without that person, maybe your child is dealing with anxiety, maybe you want to talk to somebody about these cycles of conflict you're having, go ahead and go to parent coaching. On parentguidance.org, register for coaching. It just takes a few minutes. Within 24 to 48 hours, a mental health coach will reach out to you at no cost to you. This is something that we have already covered because you're part of Alachua School District as a parent. And you can actually go and talk to one of our mental health coaches at any time. They will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. And you can set up a 30-minute Zoom call with them and just kind of discuss what's going on. And you can do this once or twice or however many times you need. So that is something I want to make sure you all are aware of. If you would like to go ahead and sign up for coaching, I have on your screen right now where it says click here to confidentially register. So if you can go to parentguidance.org and click parent coaching and register that way. Or if you're on Menti, you can do that too. Click here to register. And this is something that any adult in your family can go ahead and take advantage of. Is there anything you want to share, you're going to remember from today? Feel free to type that into Menti. And as those are coming in, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to be here. You will get a recording of tonight's session. So if you want to send this to your spouse, if you want to watch this with your child, if you want to share this, like I said, with that sister-in-law that lives in Nebraska, you can do that. You're going to own this after tonight and you can forward it on. And we hope you do share it with others and invite others to our next session. So thank you so much, and don't miss out on our next series, and check out parentguidance.org because there's some really great resources on there for all of us adults that sometimes need that extra support too. So thanks so much. Tina, anything else?
Yes, so I just would like to thank everyone for joining us tonight on our Zoom. And we appreciate your participation. Each week you're available to come and connect with us for more informative presentations and discussions. And once again, I'm Tina Folston Hayes with the Parent Academy for the Alachua County Public Schools. The next 2 weeks will be our Christmas break. So we will be back on Thursday, January the 5th, where we'll be joined by Take Stock in Children. And so we hope that you all join us. And I don't see any questions in the Q&A. So with that being said, everyone have a great evening.
Awesome. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Bye-bye.